Well, the legendary group Magic System, together with Yemi Alade and the whole crew bringing us that official song for AFCON 2023 in Côte d'Ivoire, which now has a clear picture as regards who will go into that big final on Saturday. The Super Eagles of Nigeria, three-time champions, knocking on a fourth. And of course, the Elephants of Côte d'Ivoire, who on all two occasions have done this at the expense of the Black Stars of Ghana, knocking on a third opportunity. Who wins this one? And here with me in the studio are Sami Amwesi and Victor Atsu Tamakloe. We'll be going on the ground to Côte d'Ivoire as well. Our men are there on the ground to bring us what the conversations are like, you know, especially knowing that they're just on a brink of supporting their team to win a third AFCON title. And boy, oh boy, isn't it a story of a very big episode of drama, because Côte d'Ivoire are going into this with a makeshift appointment of a coach. We'll do all of that analysis and how it could turn out to be a real fairy tale story. Now, I'll just start off by going onto my Facebook wall, my personal Facebook wall, Nathaniel Atto Citizen Atto. And there's some very interesting set of comments coming in, because immediately, you know, the final confirmation was done. I went out there and wrote and asked if Ghanaians would rather Nigeria equaled the record of 4 titles, or that we had Côte d'Ivoire do a third. So this is it. So this is on my personal Facebook page. So would you rather Nigeria equals Ghana's 4 titles, or Ivory Coast makes it number 3? What are your reasons, by the way? And this is these are some of the responses I got. Very, very interesting set of responses, you know, on my page. So I'm just going to go over there and let you have a feel of what people are saying, you know, in this side of town. Very, very interesting as well. And we're also going to look at those on the losing end. I'm talking about the Bafana of South Africa, and also the, you know, the Congolese national team, Dr Congo, making it to the top 4. Very interesting set. Okay, so there we go. Let me just scroll up. Okay, there we go. Okay, so Maximus Atta, my good friend, Maximus says, Ghana was winning in ancient times when football on the continent was not that competitive and everything about Ghana was so fiery. Nigeria would win this cup and surpass our ancient glory. I'm not even sure Ghana can win an AFCON trophy in our lifetime again. Hey, Maximus. Now, Muhammad Diwan says, Nigeria should even overtake Ghana. Now, Dana J, in fact, Dana J's son is Giovanni, who won the spelling bee, you know, this weekend. Giovanni Ajay, that's his father. Dana J says, host and win. So he's on the side of Côte d'Ivoire. Francis Ajay Kisi says, 4 for Nigeria, so it will teach us a lesson to be serious with our football. Now, Citizen Boachi Ansa says, Ivory Coast, of course. Godson Turbine says, colonial trophies, stop counting them. Okay. Rita Koko has the Ivorian flag, and that is enough of a statement. Now, Henkin Klonobi Ajase Kojo says, we will die in the hands of Nigeria if they win or equal our 4 titles. It will be better for Ivory Coast to make it. Niger dear, like we die, teasing all over us. Okay. Christabel Dazi says, Christabel Dazi says, I would go with Ivory Coast because of the comeback kid story. It's too amazing. And we won't hear the end of it from Niger. You know, people are just, you know, very much concerned. Amicus Daniel Awuni says, I prefer Niger any day. It will make us wise up and we play too much with our football issues. Now, Kwesi Amwa says, Ghana is living in past glory of our forefathers. Nigeria will win. Now, Samuel Nikwe Morrison is giving us a history lesson here. As a Ghan, I'm a Ghan as well. My second country is Nigeria, so I'm going for Nigeria, bro. In fact, I just spoke to my Nigerian brothers where we are going to watch the final. Okay. David Amikwame says, whoever wins doesn't concern me. Okay. Nutifafa Kojo Zanu says, yes. Yes to what? Host and one. That's what Kweku Jr. says. And Elias Fury says, tough choice. Is there a way both teams can lose? Well, it's not possible. And then Emeritus is talking boxing. He wants us to discuss boxing. So this is what it's looking like on, you know, on my personal Facebook wall. You know, people are divided regarding how it's going. But yesterday gave us some very good entertainment.
Yeah, I think that both games really proved to be like it's a semi-final game. You look at the determination from both sides. And I mean, South Africa, Nigeria, Dr Congo, and then Ivory Coast as well. So it's really proved that, listen, African football, some countries or some teams are declining, but I mean, holistically, I think that we are really making progress. And for me, I think that in the final especially, I mean, I think that for so many years, I don't think we've had, I mean, winners, former champions come into play in a space where most of their players are playing competitively. Most of their players seems to be in the peak of their form, especially when it comes to their career, their training. So for me, I think that the semi-final worth it, and the final, I think that will caps everything. But I think that even though I think I was here on Monday and I was hoping to see South Africa, I mean, at the final, but I think that they were just unfortunate. I think Nigeria are too strong this time around, and that's why they were able to make it. So for me, I think that I can't simply wait for the final on Sunday.
Atsu?
I think we saw a brilliant game between Nigeria and South Africa. Ultimately, it came down to just the quality of the penalty kicks that...
And before you go on, you know, there was conversation about, you know, Rowan Williams and how he could come to the party.
Yeah.
Stanley Nwabali took his place, you know, and Rowan got the direction of that first penalty.
He did. But again, it reinforces my point, and I've espoused that on this show, that when it comes to penalty shootouts, it is not a lottery. In fact, the science of penalty shootouts favors the takers. And so in any shootouts, the team with the best takers always wins, not necessarily the best goalkeeper, because after the goalkeeper makes the save, still, you will need a player to go out there and then score to drum home the advantage. And unfortunately for South Africa, the same theme that played out against Cape Verde, in the sense that the penalty kicks they took were very poor. Only that Cape Verde were somehow worse than South Africa when it came to the taking of the penalty kicks or the quality of the shots. And so you found a lot of very central kicks that were close enough within proximity to Williams. And so he really didn't have to break sweat to save those. Against Nigeria, you realize that, yes, he got the direction right for a number of those, but the quality of the kicks made it practically impossible. So he guessed right. So he did his research. He saw where Troost-Ekong was likely to hit his penalty shootout, because he had seen him take that penalty shootout against Ivory Coast. He had seen Troost-Ekong against Ghana. Similar pattern of where he sends these penalty kicks. But the difference this time was the quality of the kicks that the Nigerians took. Kelechi Iheanacho and all of those players who took them. And that, for me, is the heartbreaking part of this, because you look at the football that they played over 90 minutes. I thought they looked a bit more brave than even the Nigerians. I thought they would be a bit more pragmatic. I didn't expect them to show that level of adventure, in the sense that in the first half, all the brilliant chances fell to them. Even on the cusp of full time in extra time, we saw that brilliant chance that fell to Mudau. How he failed to score that chance, only he can tell. So the South Africans played well. They exhibited good understanding of the way the Nigerians played. And I'm sure we'll get into the conversation of how they were able to stay in that game for so long. And for those who follow the analysis that we made here, we explained how, although Alex Iwobi was a brilliant player in the build-up phase for the Nigerians, he also, to some extent, was a liability when it came to stopping the opponents and short-circuiting them. So you realize that in the first half, everything the South Africans did, they attempted that space that we spoke about, that half space that he likes to occupy when the Nigerians are defending, and then the space between the left centre-back and the left wing-back, the left centre-back and then the holding midfielder. So yesterday, for some parts of the game, Calvin Bassey looked very uncomfortable, not because he is not a very good defender in that zone, but Zaidi Sanusi is a bit more comfortable defending those areas, because that's his bread and butter. That's what he's trained to do, right? So his absence meant that Calvin Bassey now, who looked very competent doing the mop-up and being the extra man for Nigeria on that side of the defense every time Zaidi Sanusi was on the pitch, this time had to be the man to shoulder that responsibility. And what did South Africa do? Calmly knock the ball around him, try to draw some rings. Not always successful, but the few times that they found success, we saw how well, that served them. Unfortunately, Nigeria are such a well-drilled team that they do not allow any kind of momentum. So yes, in the videos that we showed you on Monday and then on Wednesday, you saw that Angola had a bit of joy in 2 or 3 game scenarios of the 90 minutes. Guinea-Bissau had 1 or 2, but that's as far as you can go. As far as when it comes to pointing out the things that make them susceptible to conceding chances in this tournament. And against South Africa yesterday, it was the same. The only difference for me was that, or the only issue that I had with South Africa was that they had enough chances. Unlike Cape Verde, who had 1, and unfortunately it came off the upright. Unlike Guinea-Bissau, who had 1, and that goal was flagged off for offside. South Africa had about 2 or 3. And the most heartbreaking of those was the chance that Mudau had in the dying embers of the game. And look, when you work that hard, when you are able to force that space and create that chance, you will expect that you're able to put it away. Because after all is said and done, no matter what you say about Makopa and how profligate he was and how, yes, he occupied spaces, but he really didn't have the quality to threaten the Nigerian defense. The chance South Africa had came at a time when, had they taken it, Nigeria would have had absolutely no response. And somehow they managed to fluff it.
I think just 2 things for me.
Sure.
I think you look at, on Tuesday when we were here, I just spoke about Nwabali and then Williams. They're playing in the South African PSL. And you look at how professional they've been, how competitive they've been throughout the tournament. And they came face-to-face yesterday. Even though South Africa lost, but you look at how they were eager to make that impression. And so for me, I think that for South Africa, it has been so many years that they've found themselves at where they are. Even though they're losing and not being able to play in the finals, I think that they will take some bit of consolation from this part. I think massive credit to Hugo Broos that I've been here all the time and I've been praising him all the time. And then the other thing, for me, has to do with the Ivory Coast side. I mean, MS and then the story that he's created for himself. In the midst of the tournament, they thought they're already out. They had to fire the coach. Okay, we're able to make it through because Morocco did us a favor. And look at the story that he's been able to, create for himself. I think that some way, somehow, the manager really in the group phase didn't have the selection right because some of the players that he was choosing or fielding, for me, it was not right because I'm not sure that if you have somebody like Frank Kessié, Sebastian Hala, all these players are on the bench. I'm not saying that the players that he was fielding in the group phase game were not good enough, but in tournament like this, you don't gamble. You field your best players, and you know that these are the best players that, for me, when I field them on the pitch, they are going to do the job for me. But I think he did it, but they were not producing the results. And for MS, and for how far he's come, I don't know if the Ivorian Federation is going to consider another coach. Because when he was sacked, they were trying to bring in Hervé Renard, but the French Football Federation rejected. But I think how far they've come, playing in the final against, Nigeria. For me, even if he should lose that game, I think the story that he's been able to create for himself and this team, I think that he needs to stay. And I think for me yesterday, I told a friend that, listen, I think MS has been able to define the term never give up. Because you look at where they've come in, how they went through, losing to Equatorial Guinea, and look at what happened at the stadium and even outside. So I think that massive credit to them. And I think the players themselves really understood after losing to Equatorial Guinea that, listen, moving forward, we need to take the chances. Just look at the goal that, Sebastian Haller scored. Very difficult from his position, but he was able to do his best to get the ball at the back of the net. And so for me, I think that MS Farah has really done a massive job. Well, for South Africa, better luck next time.
We sure are going to be coming back to that subject of, of Côte d'Ivoire making their way into the final. You wanted to make a quick point.
Yeah, I think this is a tournament where the coaches have really left their imprints on the teams. Yeah. And for football fans, that's not always a good thing because in knockout competitions, coaches will favor pragmatism. They'll favor substance over style. And so you'd find that the teams that often play strictly to instructions, you find that the teams are not always expansive. They give very little away in terms of chances and possession. You could say they are risk-averse and you'll not be far from right. But also, the football they play, very methodical. And I think the biggest example of that is Jose Pizarro. Pre-tournament, all the talk was how the team was very imbalanced technically and that you could not tell what the Nigerian team is fit for, what kind of football that they are good at. all you knew was that they had crazy attacking talent. So Simon Moses, you had Ademola Lookman, and the big man himself, Victor Osimhen, and all of these, Kelechi Iheanacho, and all of these talents. But after the first game, he's taking this team and giving them a semblance of an identity. How has he done that? He has now changed the team to a back three and ensure that there is a bit of solidity in the way the team, they moved forward as a unit. And you'd realize that when they are moving forward, when they're trying to close down spaces, the spaces between the players are very, very small. So 5-7 yards in between. What that means is that it is easier for them to cover for teammates who move out of possession or move out of position, I beg your pardon, and essentially ensure that the shape of the team is not stretched. So one player could get dribbled, but if you go through all the highlights of the matches that Nigeria have played, immediately, one of the things you're going to see is that a teammate either is going to step in with a tackle or get close enough to force the opponent into making a safe pass that is not of any threat or any consequence to the Nigerian defense. Beyond the brilliant coaching that Jose Peseiro has superintended over, he's managed to get his players to apply themselves in a manner that has been brilliant. And so you're seeing players take responsibility in areas that ordinarily other teams won't. And it's not only in the defensive phase, even in the attacking sense, you're seeing players getting into history numbers. So the other time we're talking about Ademola Lookman, who with his 3 goals has become only the 4th Nigerian in the history of the AFCON to score 3 goals or produce 3 goal contributions after Rashid Yekini, JJ Okocha, and then Odion Igalo. Yesterday, with the second penalty, or with the penalty that the big centre-back Troost also scored, he's become the 4th Nigerian player to score 2 penalty shootouts at the AFCON. And you want to talk about the coaching impact, and I feel that the progress of this Nigerian team is one that is down to Peseiro.
Very well. We're still here on AFCON Today, and it's live here on Joy Prime on 281 on DSTV, and also on Joy 99.7 FM show, proudly sponsored by MTN. MTN, everywhere you go. Now, let's quickly take a look at how it all happened. The build-up to those penalties, for those of you who still do not understand why those penalties were awarded. Atsu would come here and, throw focus some more.
We're talking about the Ivory Coast game.
Very well.
Right. The build-up to this one was about how determined and how aggressive the Ivorians are and how they don't give away too much. But almost to the detriment of the efforts that they had put into having an actual plan. So the commitments, the passion, and all of these things, all of these words we like to throw about, they are nice. But when you get onto the pitch, you need to have a plan. Because when the game starts, you need a way, or you need to fashion out a way of progressing play from the first phase to the second phase and creating chances, while also sustaining a semblance of solidity. Because the game is played in 2 phases, the attack and then the defense. If your attack is good, but the defense is porous, it counts for nothing. Dr Congo came into this game, and just like all of us, they had figured out how the Ivorians would play, which is get the ball to Sekou Fofana, get through Simon Adingra, and the chances will come. Sounds pretty obvious, right? But it's not so easy to stop. And we're going to show you how this played out in the first game. Now, from the very 3rd minute, Dr Congo showed us that, indeed, they came here prepared and provisioned for the assignment. And so you'd realize that they targeted the players that have been central to everything Ivory Coast have achieved in this tournament. And again, Simon Adingra and then Sekou Fofana. So the attempt or the idea basically is to short-circuit the build-up, short-circuit the Ivorian. So from the first phase, before Sekou Fofana can do anything meaningful, foul him or stop play. If the play progresses to the second phase or the 3rd phase, stop Simon Adingra. And we're going to show you as early as the 3rd minute how this played out. And it was pretty clear that this is what Dr Congo were all about. So you see the action here. Jean-Michel Seri to Sekou Fofana, and quickly. Now, what this shows you, in one spot, you see how the 2 players who have been central and will be central as the game progresses to Ivory Coast are targeted. So the first idea is for Prickle to keep tabs on Sekou Fofana from the very moment he gets the ball, which is close contact there. So here you see Pickle staying with his man and ensuring that whatever Fofana does, he doesn't get too far away. If he releases the ball, quickly. We snap at Simon Adingra and get the ball away from him. Did this work? To a certain extent. Now, this was obvious because for everyone who had watched the Ivorian team, you knew that Sekou Fofana is not only the engine room, he's not only the tank of this team, but in terms of the brains of the operation as well, he can be the guy, right? So after the third minute, Ivory Coast realized that this may not have to work and they would have to try to introduce a bit of variety. The build-up starts with Frank Kessie. They are forced to send the ball back to Sekou Fofana. Ivory Coast, again, quickly find out that DR Congo have the script read, and so they react. And they don't care if it's a foul. So as early as the 4th minute, they have committed 2 fouls on the same man, Sekou Fofana. But how long can you do this? You can't do this for 90 minutes. So at some point, Sekou Fofana is going to break free. And we'll show you what happens when he evades that press and all of that policing or attention that they put him under. Now, the second clip that we're going to show you is what will speak to what happens when Sekou Fofana gets the better of his opponent and gets into space. He and then the other teammates that we've mentioned in Simon Adingra, right? The Right to Dream Academy product who has become a household name at the AFCON. So again, the build-up shots, this time around, they introduced a bit of variety by going through Frank Kessie, right? So the Ivorians quickly figured out if Sekou Fofana is the first point of call in our build-up, we're doomed because the policing is such that he has no time, he has no space. So introduce a bit of variety, go through Frank Kessie, who, and in this clip, you would see 2 action spots. The first time Kessie receives the ball, someone closes down on him. So he plays a safe pass. When the action plays, you realize that he has been able to evade the press and leaves 2 players in his wake. So he leaves 2 players behind him, which means that Fofana is in space, and then he's going to feed him. And that's exactly what happens in this sequence of play. So you're going to see Bolly to Kessie. Kessie evades the press, finds Sekou Fofana in space. What does he do? Straight to Mr. Adingra. Now, this is the 14th minute, and this is the first time Adingra has space. Now, Adingra is important to the build-up of Ivory Coast because beyond the trickery, beyond the pace, he has end products. He can get the ball into the box. He can supply the man who makes the third runs or the late runs into the box, or the center forward occupying the space. So when Adingra has the ball, he will get past defenders. He will create space. But more importantly, he will get the ball into the vital areas. And after 14 minutes, Ivory Coast had the first sign that this plan could well work for us. So we've seen 2 things here. The build-up in the first phase, we've seen the involvement or the attempt to involve Sekou Fofana. It didn't work for 14 minutes. But after 14 and a half minutes, they had a breakthrough when they introduced variety by going through Frank Kessie before finally coming through Fofana. And then in the third part of the clip, we've shown you something that the subsequent clips are going to show you is super important, which is the end products for Ivory Coast. Because the Ivorians are not interested in all of these Pep Guardiola 60-50 passes into the penalty. They don't want that. Get the ball to the byline, send deliveries into the box. They have the men. They will finish the chances. To the next clip here, which will show us another aspect of the Ivorian game. So we've seen what they want to do. Progress play, get the ball into wide areas, and then provide the supplies for the players in the attacking box. But it does not necessarily matter who is involved in the build-up. Only that Sekou Fofana's contribution in this tournament has given him the credibility to be the guy to carry the ball into those attacking areas for Simon Adingra and his bunch of forwards to wreak the havoc. This time around, there is a bit of variety, again, because they do not go through the left side, they go through the right side, right? The right side of the Ivorian attack. And ultimately, as we've said, the goal is to send the ball into the penalty area. And so the build-up starts here. So there's another action spot where, so 2 minutes, we'll get to the chance in a bit, but there's another action spot where 2 minutes after the first sign of trouble, DR Congo decided that this time around, we're not going to allow this young man too much space to wreak havoc. So just check how deep Simon Adingra is, yet the fullback stays with him. This is supposed to be in CoteD'Ivoire's own half, right? Ordinarily, the fullback is supposed to be at rest, not chase him that far. Because in this area, Simon Adingra is of no threat, really. Right? Unless he gets the ball 10 and then goes central. But having experienced what Simon Adingra did 2 minutes earlier, the fullback now is screwed on. He knows that he cannot afford him any more space. So he has to check him. So he stays with him and ensures that he goes with him all the way into the Ivorian half. And even if it means fouling him, they don't mind. But after that foul, or after that contact, Ivory Coast are forced now to go through the right side. And let's see what happens here. Who's on the end of that cross? Simon Adingra again. So for Ivory Coast, MS Fire was clear in his mind what the game plan was. And as I've said, when it comes to knockout phase football, coaches are not interested in being experimental. They are not interested in style or any of the nice things. They want to see football that delivers results. And what has worked well for them is what they will polish at best. They are not interested in making too many changes. So we've shown you what the Ivorian plan is. Now, as the game progresses, we're going to see this perhaps is the other chances that Ivory Coast would create in this game. Another situation where they get the ball into wide areas, they are looking for the chance to get the ball into the box. And so not too much concentration in midfield areas. Quick ball, cross comes in, and again, he should be getting that on target at the very least. So 2 high-quality chances in the opening 40 minutes from football that is very simple, but also very direct and effective. And as far as the coach is concerned, his tactic has worked. Because up until this point, it is the Ivorians that have created the 2 clear goal-scoring opportunities. Obviously, when the coach creates these chances, you don't expect he'll be the man to come and score these chances for them. So he's done his job, MS Fire. Now, let's look at throughout the game. Forget about the goal because it follows the same sequence because it also came from the wing play, the service from wide areas that Sebastian Haller scored. The best opportunities that DR Congo had were from individual brilliance. The first one perhaps was something that they could have developed. And that's what I feel maybe if Desabre and his men had studied this from the first half and found a way to repeat it, they could have hurt the Ivorians. So you realize that the Ivorians had a midfield of 3 players. Jean-Michel Seri at the base, and then 2 players to his either side.
On the wings.
Yes. In Frankesi to the right, and then Seko Fofana to the left side. And whenever they're in possession, they try to push forward as much as possible. But there was one occasion where quickly they lost possession from a throw-in. The Congolese attempted to recycle, did not even try to recycle it because there were not enough passes for you to call that recycling. If teams want to recycle possession, once they win the ball back, they will circulate the ball a bit, try to calm things down before they move the ball forward. But that didn't happen. What did DR Congo do? Immediately they won the ball up. And you see, that incident even happened because Simon Adingra tried to be cheeky. If he takes the ball under control, he doesn't win the ball and the team shape remains intact. But he tried a cheeky flick, Simon Adingra, from this throw-in, and it didn't work. Congo win the ball, a simple back pass, and then the defender quickly is able to locate Gael Kakuta. And this is where you see the brilliance of this pass. Because in one move, he's taken out the entire Ivorian midfield that is supposed to screen the defense. Now, from this angle, it looks like they have everything covered. So you have Simon Adingra here, Seko Fofana here, and then Frankesi here, marking his man.
Wow,
right?
Interesting stuff.
So they have everything covered here. Unfortunately, the pass here is so good that it takes all these 4 players out of the equation. So when we press play, you're going to see that all of these bodies no longer matter. Now, Gael Kakuta has the ball in behind the defense. And this is criminal because of everything we've seen DR Congo do at this tournament. Their best creator is Gael Kakuta. So before this game, in MS Fire's pre-match press or technical prep with his players, one of the things he would have said to them, I presume, is that of all the players you cannot afford any chance in the half space, Gael Kakuta is number 1 because he's a creator. That is his bread and butter. When he gets the ball, his first instinct is to find teammates in space and look at the areas where he can feed them. Players like that only shoot if, one, they believe shooting is the best course of action, or there are not enough options there for them to exploit. And unfortunately for Gal Kakuta, those options did not show up. We're going to show you just the final clip from this action shot.
Very well.
And then see the other time the Congolese got close. And it's also from an individual play. So this was a game that the Ivorians had on lock from minute 1 to 90. And you're going to see, again, a bit of individual play because whatever happens here is not something you can coach. Pay attention to the dribbling, the turn of pace. So and this is a chance that he could have scored.
A clean shot pass.
So this is not something the coach can point to and say, let's recreate these scenarios. Because unless you have Messi on the pitch. But what we showed you earlier, that pass in behind the midfield into Gal Kakuta is something, if they had been able to recreate, maybe they would have had the numbers, or they would have the numbers in terms of openings to try and see if they can convert those into goals.
Well, that reminds me of Kwesi Appiah, the former coach of the Black Stars, who says that you may put the formations together, you may let them, play in that pattern, but when the game begins, everything else changes. Real game situations. We're still here on AFCON Today, sponsored by MTN, and we're also here on 281 on DSTV and on Joy 99.7 FM. So we'll do a round of messages, and after that, when we come back, we're going to Karim, the man with the statistics, and then we'll do some more in previewing the big game we're expecting this weekend. Third place, well, still be played, and it helps in putting the records together as well. You stay with us. Hi.
Karim, you fool.
Well, the look and feel of everything on the ground will also bring to you here on AFCON Today. But before that, let's bring in Karim so that he gives us some figures, regarding what we saw yesterday and what we should be expecting. Yeah, how do you call this walk? I like it, like a lot more of your shoulders coming forward and all of that.
Did Multimedia pay a special model for
the way you
coach
how to walk?
Well, we'll find that out.
We have to. And these days, he doesn't walk in a circle when coming on set.
Yeah.
The straight line.
The straight line. Yeah.
I started doing tutorials.
Karim,
yes,
let's go.
To think
yes,
is very easy, but to act is hard. But the hardest thing in the world is to act in accordance with how you think. That is according to the German writer, Goethe.
Very well.
Yesterday's game between South Africa and Nigeria, the coaching from South Africa was excellent, almost to perfect. But how to execute what he asked them to implement, that's what failed them. Because there was no way with those chances South Africa got, they shouldn't have been scoring at least 2 goals in the first half. And even with that, if they had failed to score those, towards the end of the game, that open goal.
Mudau.
How did he miss that? So to act in accordance with how you think, it's not easy.
It's hard.
That's what failed.
Hard in capital letters.
You're trying to say Mudau got into the free ban yesterday.
Yes.
See, when you get the ball.
He's trying to think, but the thinking is not thinking.
It's nothing.
So let's look at the stats from the South Africa vs Nigeria game. Nigeria, we've become used to them having less of the ball, but they are dangerous when they have it. South Africa having 60% of the ball in this game, that is the highest they've managed in this game. That is because of the kind of players they have in their defense and their back line. They have ball-playing centre-backs and midfielders. If you are looking at the chart of the players with the most passes in that game, you are ranking from 1 to 8, all of them being South Africans. That is the kind of players, how cohesive they are. They know each other. And the kind of the interchanges they make, that is how come they dominated Nigeria this match in this game. But Nigeria don't need possession to win the game, as they've shown throughout after that draw versus Equatorial Guinea. Let's look at expected goals. Both teams here, Nigeria had 1.49 expected goals. It means that they were just expected to score 1 goal with the chances they had. and they did just that from the penalty spot. But South Africa were expected to score 2 goals at least, but they managed to do just 1 because of how poor they are in their finishing. They basically shot themselves in the foot. They should have won the game, no need to go on penalties. They were thinking that maybe Rowan Williams can come up for them again, but this time, the magic failed him. Let's look at shots. Nigeria had 6 shots on target out of a total of 14 they've attempted. The same for South Africa. They also had 14 shots, 5 of them on target. I'm interested in South Africa's shots on target. This is 5. Throughout the tournament, they've attempted 30 shots on target. It means that, and they've scored 6 goals. To score a goal, it means they need 5 shots on target to score a goal. You cannot win the AFCON with this. That's poor. Big chances created. You created 2 big chances, South Africa, Nigeria 3. With Osimhen, we know that this tournament is not his. He can't score.
He's left in scoring boots.
Yes.
Well, but he has come in to do a lot of important things for Nigeria.
That's very true.
There's no doubt about
the
that.
kind of inspiration he provides is really key in what they do. So I'm moving on to the pass maps of the 2 teams. That is basically where the story of the game is. Nigeria, as we know them to be, they like to play the long balls and go on the counter. This is how dispersed their passing map is. They like to go long from the goalkeeper to this way. This is how dispersed it is for Nigeria. But if you go to South Africa, let's move on to South Africa's pass map. How connected it is, how cohesive their passing is, very close to each other. It means that the players know each other and understand each other. What I'm interested in South Africa's pass map is how the players that each player is passing the ball to. Throughout this tournament, they've been the team with the most shots coming from direct attacks. This is South Africa's pass map. This basically explains why they have most of the possession, but if you are looking at the attacking momentum, they didn't pose so much danger for Nigeria, though they had their moments. The ball was played basically in their own half. And the kind of direct attack I'm talking about, it means that they were trying to play the ball from their own half to find an attacker and force mistakes from the defense of Nigeria. This is the pass map. This is Modiba. From here, he found Pesitao 7 times. This is Mvala. He's also found Pesitao 6 times. This is Kekana. He's also found Pesitao 2 times. And this is the right back, forgotten his name, Modao. He's the player that has found Pesitao the most times in that game, and that is 13. It means that these players are closer to Pesitao, but the players behind at the back and in the midfield, they are looking for Pesitao the most. That is the kind of strategy they went into the game with, to flow the balls to him, and he was basically acting as sort of a register that the balls bounce, it's either the ball bounce off him or he tries to go direct at the defenders. And we saw in that moment when he attempted that shot from inside the box and he didn't go. He also bounced one off for Makopa, and he also attempted and basically was denied by how good the Nigerian goalkeeper Stanley is.
Nwabali.
Yes, Nwabali. So let's look at the stats of Nwabali. Basically,
Karim, before you go to Nwabali, the other problem that I identified was that, and if they can show us the pass maps again for South Africa, while the voluminous passes from deep into Pesitao were not condemnable, the problem was that the other distribution or exchange of passes between the immediate supporting cast, here in case the midfield, and then Pesitao himself, good, thank you very much, were not significant in the sense that when they occurred, they occurred in the negative, as in back passes, and not, say, a sequence of passes, progressive passes. So you'd find a very minute percentage of forward passes or progressive passes, as you could put it, from the supporting cast. And even from Pesitao himself, when he had to make those passes, it was often with his back turned to goal and trying to send the ball back into midfield.
Well, okay, let's just quickly take a look at Nwabali. And once again, we'll talk about the shape of his head on the lighter side. Inyama had a similar shape of her head.
Yes.
And Peter Rufai. Yeah, with a little bit of a punk there. Okay, let's go through.
The man looks like a proper hustler.
Yeah.
That's why he's
even Tony Silva of Senegal.
Yeah.
That's why he's very serious on the pitch.
Yeah.
The difference between South Africa at this tournament and in 2021 is a goalkeeper.
Very well.
The difference in this game is how good Nwabali is. In this game, he's made 4 saves. That is the second highest he has made at this tournament, apart from that game against Guinea-Bissau where he made 5 saves. Again, he acted as a sweeper once. That means that he has a lot of awareness in him when the ball is coming, acting as a thief or sieve centre-back for Nigeria. He comes out of his line. When there's danger, he clears it. And the most important one in the game, saving 2 penalties to send Nigeria into the final.
Wow. Stanley Nwabali.
He's been doing a lot of stats padding. A lot of the saves he's made are routine saves. Yesterday.
What is important, Victor? What is important is that the guy has gotten the job done.
Yes.
So they are in the final. Let's do a round of messages, and after that, we'll get straight to Daniel Kranting, our man on the ground, who will be bringing us a good look and feel, from Côte d'Ivoire, what the fans are saying as we look ahead to the big day on Sunday. Stay with us here on AFCON Today. Let's go on the ground to Côte d'Ivoire, where our man Daniel Kranting is ready to bring us up to speed on what's been happening after, last night and all the drama that happened. Okay. Daniel, can you hear me? Is Daniel
Yes, Nat, I hear you loud and clear.
Great. Daniel, good to have you. Look, tell me what for you were the most striking stories from the experience last night of watching these big games?
The interesting thing was, for me, the change in atmosphere, I can say. Before the game, that's before the first semi-final between Nigeria and South Africa. I was in Abidjan for the Côte d'Ivoire game, and the Nigeria game was in about 4 minutes or 4 hours drive from Abidjan.
Very well.
And you could tell that most Ivorians were very nervous ahead of that game. They were really nervous. You could tell, you could literally taste the tension in the air. But once Nigeria won, by that time we were in the stadium, it was just about 10 minutes to kick off for the Ivory Coast game. There was this loud roar, and I was wondering. So I asked a couple of journalists who were basically telling me that the crowd are eager for the to go to the final and sort of get that revenge against Nigeria. Remember, they lost against Nigeria team on to get rid of the Congolese and then go into that final against Nigeria and get their revenge, which eventually will win them the trophy. So in the stadium, the atmosphere was crazy. It was absolute mad scenes in the stadium, and especially because of the way the Ivorian team started. For me, I think this is probably their best game so far of the tournament in terms of control. They were not really under any pressure. And they played really well. Attacking-wise, they were absolutely brilliant. Could easily have been 2 goals up by halftime. That did not deter them from coming back, or did not discourage them from coming back and increasing the level. They did so brilliantly, and Halle scored that goal. And from then, it was just a complete party atmosphere. From after the game, the streets of Abidjan, look, people are happy, and they are beginning to sense that this miracle could happen. Remember, a couple of weeks ago, they were on the verge of going out. In fact, I spoke to Willy Bolly after the game. He sort of indirectly thanked Morocco for keeping them in the competition and said once they had been given that lifeline, they were not going to let their people down, and that is what they are driving for. So the crowd, the people in here in Côte d'Ivoire really sense that their team can go all the way. And the team themselves, we talked to the players, they really believe that this miracle could happen. I also spoke to Seko Fofana and then Seri. In fact, it was Jean-Michel Seri who mentioned the fact that the head coach, Amas Faye, has completely changed the atmosphere in the team. He credited his starting 11s, his substitutions. He said the mood in the team has been completely uplifted once Faye took over, and they hope to complete the job coming Sunday.
So clearly, the Ivorian faithful feel that it's more realistic now than ever to get close to a title. Now, let's look at Nigeria and how far they've come. But before we look at that as well, I'd want you to tell me about the aspect of organization and what you've seen so far. I mean, with the experience of other tournaments. The whole world is looking at us. For me, from what you see in terms of the images on television, it's amazing. But what about what's on the ground?
I'm on the ground. I think it's, at least for the game I was at yesterday, I think it's been good. In terms of transportation to the stadium, how the sort of cordon of areas, its security has been good. It's really commendable. The only sort of problem we've had was in terms of organization for buses for journalists. But I was told that was just a one-off that happened yesterday, so it will not be fair for me
but Danny, on a light note,
sum all that happened to one. But in general.
Yeah, you know, on a light note, you know, you are physically, you are built for that kind of vibe. So you should be able to, you know, hike a bit and all of that. Yeah, that was just by the way. Danny, we're going to catch you later this evening on, on AFCON Tonight. We're going to do some more with you on AFCON Tonight. And tomorrow as well, we're going to do a special preview with you as well. Thanks so much, Danny. We'll be running now, and we'll catch you later. Get yourself some very good, you know, chicken with, you know, that kind of thing, yeah? Poulet. Guys, this is how we end it here on AFCON Today on Joy 99.7 FM and Joy Prime. We'll be back tomorrow with a special preview to the final of AFCON 2023 between Nigeria and Côte d'Ivoire. You stay well. Keep it here. My name is Nathaniel Atto, and I have love for sport.